My next question is about giving advice. So part of what everyone is here at the conference to do is learn and grow and figure out how you can take your projects to the next level. What's wonderful about having Mika with us today, she did literally write the book on how to launch an NFT project. And my next question is really, what advice is the most important advice, now having done it and been through the process, that you give when someone asks you, what traps are there? What do I need to make sure I cover?
Yeah, great question. So context again for the NFT book was that I interviewed a bunch of different NFT projects, crypto heavens and rise, women, human runners, all these amazing NFT projects and leaders behind them, as well as work behind the scenes in a bunch of different communities. And two things that stood out as a meta piece of advice from a lot of these leaders is one, making sure that you understand the why of why you're launching this NFT project. I think going in and out of all the Discord channels and entertaining all the different opinions, as well as figuring out your roadmap and seeing all the floor price fluctuations gets to you as a project. And so remembering that in the short term, these prices might be changing, but in the long term, there's a goal and mission and a reason why you're launching this NFT project and sticking to that why. And then second is they recommend taking breaks and taking a step back and making sure that you take care of yourself in the process. And that crypto Web3 space 24/7, it's global. There are always going to be people in your Discord channels asking for XYZ, and so making sure you take a step back, take a rest, and come back re-energized and rejuvenated for the long term of the project.
Nicole, you had mentioned community, and you had mentioned that it's not just about having a roadmap, but really having a connection. Do you want to talk a little bit about your advice in that context?
Yeah, sure. So I think also having a team that you work with, having the right people in place, because as we all know, this is so labor intensive. There's so much that goes into making a great NFT project. So making sure that you have all the people on your team on board, that they can all manage what they're supposed to do in order to successfully launch the project. And then, building a community. We all know that that's super key to having a successful NFT project. Making it international, setting up channels from all over the world so that people that have other languages have the opportunity to speak in there and have their voices heard. Brendan Murphy, the artist behind the Unity project, said the thing that he loved the most about the project was he had access now to hundreds of thousands of people all around the world that he never knew before. And now these people had direct access, they could ask questions, they could get feedback. And I think that's one of the things that's made our project so successful now, is that we really listen to what the community wants. We get advice from them, we ask them for their feedback, and the more we listen, the more successful the project has become. So I think that's something that anyone who's looking to launch a project should really put their heart and soul into getting feedback from their community, because the more feedback they get, the better the project will be.
Joe, you're doing something very distinct in your community. You're trying to actually make your project more accessible, which is an important part of, I think, community building that often is overlooked. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when it comes to accessibility, so my main day job is I work directly with people with disabilities as a support worker. So when creating my art and stuff, I will often, in my writing, I'll often ask, for feedback. And even online, I'll ask for feedback. And so like my book, originally it wasn't this small. It was much bigger. It didn't have art inside. Now it has art inside with the pages with it. And that was all feedback as well as the feedback that I asked while doing the book initially. And I started it before NFTs were really big and popular. And then when I learned about NFTs, I was like, this is a perfect platform. I really envisioned a multimedia format for it. And the way I also view it is if we're able to get books on the blockchain, we can also put medical data on the blockchain. And that's something that would be incredibly useful for people with disabilities, since everyone, when you go back and forth to doctors, and each doctor has their own copy of records, when there should really be one universal way to transport records. But as a whole, accessibility especially people with disabilities in underserved communities, is a big thing where it's often overlooked and we don't think about it.
Yeah, I think it's underrepresented for a million reasons, but the fact that the blockchain offers that for people with disabilities is really powerful. Sam, you're at Metaversal, obviously super popular. Tell us a little bit about, in your experience, what the advice would be that you would give someone coming up in the space.
I think the biggest advice that I can give people coming into the space, whether you're trying to create a project or whether you're just trying to figure out which projects to buy, is you have to be in it. You have to win some and you have to lose some. You have to feel what it feels like to have FOMO. You have to feel what it feels like to be in a Discord community and part of a big community, part of a larger collective that's trying to do something bigger than the single person. I think, as you continue to buy NFTs, look at how communities act and react, you'll be able to start sensing how people think. And when you start sensing how people think, then you can start thinking about, well, how do I use that to my advantage? How do I market my project in such a way that can address either those concerns or those things that people reacted to positively? And so in that way, the biggest advice that I can give you is go be part of a really passionate community. Buy an NFT that tanks to zero. Buy an NFT that goes to the moon. Because in essence, that's what's going to give you the experience to feel like, yes, I'm confident, I've had these experiences, I know what it feels like, and now I can go into the space knowing these different pathways.
I think I'd like to add also, just because I've come from the world of art and because Danvers, the company that I'm working at, is so artist-centered, for those of you who are creators in the room or artists in the room, part of the journey of starting up something new and starting an NFT project, when you're a creator or you're an artist, it's a really lonely, solitary moment, right? You're creating something from scratch, from your imagination. No one else can do it. No one else can carry that creative water. You have to do it. I would say understand that the feelings around creation and the loneliness and the solitary nature of it are completely normal. And that's the beauty of this community that we're in, is that just when you're feeling like, how am I going to get this done? Or will anyone understand the kind of vision that I have for my artwork or for my project? Reach out to people. Reach out on Discord. Reach out on Twitter. This community is really, really powerful. I don't know that we've seen other artist communities have such reach. And I would encourage all of you, don't be shy. Creativity can be vulnerable. Reach out. I see some nodding in the room in seats that are alone. So find each other. Right now, and connect. Let's talk a little bit, because we only have a few minutes left, let's talk about one of my favorite and maybe more optimistic ways to close, which is when right now it's a bit of a tough time in the space. We're weathering a contraction in the market, we're weathering a lot of questions. But when you look forward and you think about what NFT projects will be in the future, what's your futurist view? What do you think is most exciting about the space? What gets you jazzed up and optimistic, even when I would say, the news of the day isn't great or Ethereum isn't looking too terrific price-wise? What really matters to you and carries you forward? And let's start with Nicole.
So the thing I'm really excited about is the use of technology. One of the projects that we're working on right now is called Barrel X, and Barrel X is going to democratize the spirits industry. So never before could people just go and buy barrels of bourbon. They would have to be in the business. But now, because of blockchain technology and NFTs, we have a way to democratize the industry, put it on the blockchain, show people where it came from. There's all kinds of provenance that can be traced back. So there's a lot of things that this technology can do that were never possible before, and I'm so excited to see all the usages coming out of this space going forward.
How about you, Sam? What gets you excited about the space?
I have to confess, my background is actually in classical music, and the reason why I went into NFTs in the first place is because of the success that happened, during the pandemic. You obviously can't perform in front of an orchestra or a choir or anything like that because of obvious reasons. And so, I was sort of forced to go onto the blockchain and ended up successfully selling an NFT called Benny's Notebook. And this aspect is what I find most exciting. It's the fact that we have the ability, obviously the sports genre and the sports vertical will always be big because it's huge in the United States, it has an enormous follower base, all this different stuff. It's always going to make a big difference. It's always going to make a big splash. But sometimes what we don't see is that small niche categories are going to get transformed. Small niche categories like classical music, small niche categories like literature or anything else in this space that has previously been underrepresented or underserved or maybe underappreciated both in the United States and in the world. And when I see all of these technologies, when I see a full house after the price of these has tanked by several, by $1,000 in the span of a week, it's extremely encouraging to me because this is the time to build. It's the time to expand. And the people that you're most going to change lives with are the people that are not just in these enormous verticals like sports, food and beverage, and film and entertainment, but also in these niche categories. And that is really powerful, and that's already made a huge difference personally in my life as a classical musician.
That's wonderful. Joe, tell us a little bit about